When operators are thinking about how to respond to super-emitter response program events, they need to think about their coverage of emissions, and they need to think about their quantification of emissions. So the LongPath system is able to quantify emissions really well and also provide really wide coverage of the whole site. No matter the height of the emission source, the size of the emission source, or whether it's intermittent or persistent, the LongPath system will catch that emission source. Whether the equipment is low to the ground like a well, or 80-100 feet above the ground like a stick flare, these types of plumes tend to cross our laser beams because it's a full site-wide coverage on all sides of the pad. With the super-emitter response program, a single satellite overflight might catch a plume, and they might be accurate that it's a high rate, but they might not be accurate that number one, that was a persistent rate, and number two, that the average rate through time, even when that leak was on, was what they say it is. So the two pieces of information that you really want to know about in order to demonstrate the accurate, actual emissions that might have been happening when that satellite flew overhead are the rate information of the emission and the intermittency of the emission. So if that emission was popping on and off, but was only on 20% of the time, you're going to need to know that, especially when you're calculating waste emission charges under the new IRA calculations. The other piece of information you want to know is the rate when that emission was on. So you've got to have a really accurate total site-wide quantification, which having a laser beam on either side of the site really helps with. The OpenPath continuous monitoring system, in other words, hunting methane with laser beams, is fundamentally a different approach from any other continuous monitoring system out there. This approach allows you to have accurate quantification because you're cutting through any plume that comes off the site in a way that allows you to reduce your reliance on wind information. By cutting through the plume with a line sensor rather than a point sensor, you have to make a lot fewer assumptions about what the winds were doing. You're directly measuring the volume of methane coming off of a site in a much more concrete way than you are with a simple point sensor.